Greetings everyone, welcome back to another tutorial video. Today we'll be discussing the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement transaction broker. This particular agreement contract is for when you're going to be engaging into a relationship with a buyer. Most realtors and real estate agents, they don't really work with a contractual agreement with buyers. They just usually go by a handshake agreement is what they call it, or they're just, showing homes to a potential buyer, working with a potential buyer, showing them properties. It's speculation that the buyer is going to work with them. However, sometimes it's good to use this particular agreement to engage in a relationship with a buyer and have something in writing that you're exclusively working with each other, and the buyer is going to be exclusively working with you, the realtor, to represent them, and you'll be entitled to a real estate commission upon them engaging into a contract and purchasing a property or an asset. So before we begin, I'd like to take a quick 30 seconds, like always, to discuss about our brokerage. Nizz Realty Inc. is a 100% real estate commission brokerage. This means we pay you 100% of your real estate commission. The only fee that we charge is a transaction fee. There's no hidden fees, no surprises, and the transaction fee is negotiable. We like to make sure we're giving out the best deals and that you're happy. We know what competitors are charging, and we're here to give you the best deal possible, as long as it's fair and reasonable. For further information, feel free to visit our website, nizzrealty.com, or feel free to give us a call for a free confidential consultation. But enough about our brokerage. Let's get into today's video and talking about the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement transaction broker. So this particular contract is 3 pages. It's not too long, fairly simple, and we'll go through it step by step starting from the beginning. So up here, you're going to have the buyer's name. It could be a husband and wife, a couple. There could be 3 buyers that you're working with, 1 buyer. You just put their names here. So for this video, we're just going to put something simple here. We're just going to put buyer's name here. Whatever your buyer's name, you'll put it in there. You can separate it with an and sign. Very simple up there. The next part here is the real estate broker in the office. Here you'll put your real estate broker's name. So for here you can put whatever the real estate broker's name is. And then over here you could put the office name here. So we'll just use our name for this office. Now the next part is the term. How long will this agreement last for? Well, it depends on what you're going to agree upon with your buyer and the clients that you're working with. Sometimes you may want this to last for 3 months, 6 months. This is completely up to you and your discretion. Sometimes it could be for a couple of weeks. So let's just say for this particular contract, today's video of making it is the 24th of July. Let's say it's going to go to, we'll have it go to the end of August for this particular contract. We're going to be working with this buyer. So you just fill that in there. The next part is the property, the type of property. You could put residential or single family homes, condominiums. A lot of times what I like to put in here is I just mark it up as any property located in the state of Florida. That's where we're licensed, that's where we do business. So just put something like that, usually any property in the state of Florida. You could word this differently. You could have it say single family homes, or in a particular area, which is the next part, is location. This you could write the county. You could say Miami-Dade County, Orange County, whatever county you're working in, the city. I personally like to keep it as the entire state of Florida. That's just how I like it. So it just covers, if you have to do a referral agreement, maybe the buyer, depending on who you're working with, decides they're going to go live in a different part of Florida and you're going to refer them to another realtor out there. So you could collect a small referral fee for referring that buyer to the realtor. But you could change this as you see fit. If you're going to only want to put it in a specific type of property or a specific location, you could change that. Most of the time when I fill out this particular contract is any property in the state of Florida or the entire state of Florida. Now, also this video, I'm going to be just discussing how to fill out this particular contract and agreements. I'll make probably another video discussing about how this contract actually works and how to utilize it in your everyday-to-day practice with working with buyers. So with that being said, let's move on to the next part, which is the price range. Let's just say for this particular buyer, we're going to be looking for something, let's say $250,000 to like $350,000. And the next part here, you can say buyer has been pre-qualified, they're pre-approved. So a lot of times I highly recommend that if you're going to be working with buyers, if they're going to be financing, you want to have at minimum a pre-approval letter. In my recommendation, how you work and how you do things is completely up to you, but my recommendation is that you really don't want to be going out and investing your time and showing properties to buyers if they can't at least get you a pre-approval letter. And even that pre-approval, it can only mean so much. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're actually going to purchase a property and so forth. It's very easy to get. So my recommendation is have them pre-approved by their lender, their mortgage underwriter, and so forth, so they can have at least a pre-approval letter showing that they're qualified to purchase a property for X amount of dollars in the state of Florida, whatever the case may be, and what the pre-approval says. Once again, though, it's at your discretion in how you work with buyers, but my recommendation is to at least have them pre-approved, and then you could write the mortgage company name here, whatever it may be. Just fix that up there. So you can just write something like that. They've been pre-approved by this amount, and if there's any terms or any preferred terms and conditions, I usually never fill this in. I leave it blank. If your buyer's cash, you could say they're a cash buyer and that they're I'd recommend getting at least a bank statement or something showing that they at least have the cash or the funds capable of closing and purchasing the property, just to verify and make sure that the buyer that you're working with has the funds available to close. So, but once again, it's at your sole discretion. These are just my recommendations, that you pre-qualify your buyer or have them pre-approved by their mortgage originator or their lender, whatever the case may be. You'd fill that here. And usually I don't fill this part out, so we're going to leave this blank. But if there's something, preferred terms and conditions, and you'll fill it in there. But we're going to be moving along. Next part here, you could read through at your discretion and at your leisure. It's nothing to fill out there. It's the broker's obligations, then the buyer's obligations paragraph. The next part here is paragraph 6, which is the retainer. This is if you're going to be collecting a retainer fee for working with the buyers. Most of the time you don't fill this out. Sometimes, depending on if you're going to be collecting a retainer fee for hiring your services, you could fill this out here. So let's say for this particular contract that we're going to be collecting a retainer fee. Like I said, most of the time realtors don't usually collect a retainer fee up front. It has to be a really exclusive relationship. Most of the time, especially if you're starting out in the business and you ask individuals to pay a retainer fee up front, they're more than likely not going to work with you. But that's not to say they won't or they will. This is just, what I've usually seen, that most of the time no one collects a retainer fee. But in case you're filling this out, let's just say we're going to collect an upfront retainer fee of $200. And let's just say this fee is non-refundable and will not be credited to buyer if compensation is earned. So you mark will or will not. Let's just say it will not be credited to the compensation earned by the broker, which is your commission usually. So that's how you would fill that out. You'd pick one or the other here. Next part is the compensation. This is the paragraph discussing your commission. Now, filling out this paragraph and the purchase, exchange, or a lease, or the option, most of the time I fill out the purchase or exchange up here. This is basically stating that as you can see here in the paragraph, broker's compensation is earned when, during the term of this agreement or any renewal or extension, buyer or any person acting for or on behalf of buyer contracts to acquire real property as specified in this agreement. Now here's the most important paragraph. Buyer will be responsible for paying broker the amount specified below plus any applicable taxes, but will be credited with any amount which broker receives from a seller or a real estate licensee who is working with a seller. Now this is important. By signing this contract and filling out this paragraph here, the buyer is obligated to pay you, let's just say, 3% of the purchase price, of the total purchase price. So that means that if the seller is not offering, or the real estate listing agent is not offering any compensation, any commission, the buyer is responsible for paying 3% of the purchase price if it's filled out like this. That obligates the buyer to pay the real estate broker or the brokerage, and you, the agent that is representing them and filling out this contract with them. So it's very important to understand that, and that buyers understand that they're going to be obligated to compensate you. Now, whether you pursue this amount, if the seller or the listing agent is not offering any type of compensation, is up to you. But by this contract, it's obligating the buyer to be responsible for paying your broker and the brokerage's commission for the set amount that you fill out this contract for. So let's say for this contract, it's going to be 3%. You could change this to be whatever you want it to be, 3%, 2%, 5%, whatever the case may be for this particular contract. Let's just leave it at 3, and we're going to move on to the next paragraph. If you need help filling out the lease and so forth, the different amounts here, if you're, let's say you're doing a lease and so forth, you could change it to a specified amount. You could say the name of the lease is $2,000. You could fill that out there, or whatever the compensation is. So usually with leases, it's half of the first month's rent, but sometimes that's not always the case. You'd fill that out accordingly there and put it in there, whatever the case may be. For this particular contract, let's just say we're doing a purchase, so 3%. If you have any questions about filling out the rest of this part here in this paragraph, you could contact us and we'll help you out. But that's usually how we'll fill this out. For, let's just say, this example is a purchase for, like we said in the beginning, $250,000 to $350,000, and we were looking for 3%. Now the protection period, this next paragraph, you could read through this paragraph. I like to put 60 or 90 days. You could put whatever else you deem is necessary or fit. 30 days, 15 days, 120 days. It's up to you completely. Let's just say for this particular example, we're going to put 90 days, that there's a protection period. And it's basically stating that buyer will pay broker's compensation if within 90 days after the termination date, buyer contracts to acquire any property which was called to buyer's attention by the broker. So let's say you're working with the buyer, you show them a particular property, and then let's say a week later they decide to stop working with you, or whatever the case may be, but 2 weeks go by, and then they decide to purchase the property that you showed them and brought to their attention back 2 weeks ago. You're protected under this particular paragraph that since you invested the time and both you were contractually obligated to work with each other at the time, you're protected under this period. Or even if the contract expires and then 2 weeks go by, you're protected under this 90 days or 60 days that you have put in here, so that you brought that buyer to their attention and you could earn compensation. This particular paragraph is not really that important. It's pretty self-explanatory, but if you want further clarification and elaboration on it, that's what this paragraph is discussing. Once again, 60-90 days is what I usually put. It's at your sole discretion if you're going to put something else. Moving along, you could read through these next paragraphs here: early termination, dispute resolution, and so on and so forth. Here's the next part of this paragraph, which is what I said in the beginning of this video, and what the title of this video is the brokerage relationship. This is an exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. That's what this is, exclusive buyer brokerage agreement transaction broker. Now what that means is that you're acting as a transaction broker, which is my recommendation how you always should be acting, but there's other relationships. There's single agency and a no brokerage relationship. Personally, I always like to recommend and usually always do deals as a transaction broker. The other relationships make things usually a little bit more complicated, and you could read into the other relationships and see if they fit your criteria on what you're looking to do or what your buyer wants. But in most situations, most brokers act as a transaction broker, so that you could work with the seller and the buyer in case you need to, and it's just easier and so forth. But you could read into the different relationships. I'll probably do another video on the different types of relationships and what they mean and what they do and what you're obligated to do. So, but for this particular example, this is the transaction broker agreement, and this is what I recommend that you use and so forth. But if you feel otherwise, you have a different type of relationship going on with your clients, feel free to do different types of agreements and relationships with them. So, but this is the transaction broker agreement. Special clauses, if there's anything, you fill it in here, and so on and so forth. Usually leave this blank. I don't like to make things complicated and put extra clauses, but you may have a different situation, so you'll have to fill it out accordingly if you have something else going on. And the last part is pretty much to just sign and date. You have the buyer sign it, you as the real estate associate sign it, your real estate broker signs it and dates it. And everyone, and the buyers and the broker and the sales associate should be initialing every page, initialing here, and on the first page, because that's where it is in every single page. Then you just sign it. And next, the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement, transaction broker. Hopefully this video was helpful. I tried to make it as detailed as possible. If you have further questions, feel free to leave comments down below, and we'll make some more videos talking about the different types of relationships. Transaction broker, single agent relationship, and a no brokerage relationship. And perhaps we'll discuss a couple of other things about this particular agreement in another video. That's going to be explaining when to use this particular agreement, how to use it, when you should or shouldn't use it, and if it suits your business. Like I said, most realtors, they usually just don't work with any type of contractual agreement like this when working with buyers initially, but I recommend using this agreement if you're going to be getting serious and working with buyers and in the public with individuals that you don't really know, and you're just doing advertising and representing buyers that contact you, or you contact them and reach out and see if they need help. So we'll discuss more about that in other videos. Thank you. We'll see you in the next one.